Music is the universal language of mankind. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. From an objective standpoint, memorizing lyrics of any song from just about any language is much easier than memorizing spoken words. Singing allows our brain to connect the different syllables to different notes throughout the melody. But on an emotional level, the serene, somber melody of a man singing a love song to his bride is a universal feeling anyone can feel a connection to. Common themes such as this, seen in many different songs sung in many different languages, is what allows music to transcend language barriers. Music being such an effective form of communication is especially important to the Chamorro culture. Through centuries of colonization and imperialism, the Chamorro culture has taken hit after hit that has caused its severe decline. One of the most apparent examples of this decline is in the Chamorro language. However, music has been an effective vehicle in which Chamorro people throughout history have used to perpetuate the language. Music has always been an important cultural element on the Marianas long before it was discovered by the rest of the world. Most of the musical history has been lost or undocumented, but the first European visitor noted its importance in the 16th century. The main form of song that was documented by these Europeans was known as cantan chamorrita, a call and response type of singing used in poetic debate. The use of this form of music would range from playful teasing to starting a war. Besides this form of music, Guam had different forms of chants, much like other Pacific Island cultures. These chants were used to preserve knowledge or tell stories. The Costumbrian Chamorro period encompassed the 200 years of Spanish colonial rule. The music during this period was not only affected by Spanish influence, but Filipino and Mexican influence as well. These different cultures introduced new instruments such as guitars, pianos, and harmonicas, which changed the tonal sound of Chamorro music. While this caused the loss of the older forms of music, local Chamorro musicians still accepted this. Much of the music during this time period was related to Christian religious practices, as this was the main cultural change the Spanish tried to impose on the Chamorro people. Chamorro people would also use this type of music during monotonous tasks such as working in coconut trees or roof thatching. During this time period, the Spanish changed more than just how the music sounded. The Spanish started to influence the Chamorro people by educating them on their language. The Chamorro language would start to change, adopting the Spanish language into its own. During World War II, the Japanese would force the Chamorros into a more traditional lifestyle. The Chamorros would use songs as a form of rebellion, as the Japanese could not understand the Chamorro language. The Chamorros would use songs to insult the Japanese or even pass news around the village. Popular songs such as Sam, Sam, My Dear Old Uncle Sam boosted the morale of the Chamorro people during the Japanese occupation. The use of the Chamorro language would continue to decline as the Japanese would implement punishments for those speaking Chamorro as they wanted to understand them. The Japanese would take the same approach as the Spanish and try to impose their language onto them. Chamorro music after World War II saw a heavy influence from America as it began to settle on the island. The United States had the largest impact on the Chamorro language with their language policies. Chamorro was less likely to be heard outside of households because of the mandates naval governors had in place. Also, a majority of the island was now foreigners who were just settling in and had no knowledge of the Chamorro language. This did not stop the Chamorro people from creating music, as many of the most popular modern-day Chamorro artists emerged in this era. Songs during this time were used as a form of cultural activation to express the Chamorro people's concerns with the Americans. One example of this was Mungadzu Mafino Ingles, performed by Johnny Soblan, which translates to "Don't speak to me in English." During the 1980s, Chamorro music began to become more popular on the island once again because of the production of cassette tapes. This made it easier for Chamorro artists to spread their music. Artists such as J.D. Crutch and Alexandro Soblan emerged during this time. While Chamorro artists maintain a constant fan base today, digital music has made piracy an ease, which hinders local artists' success. Today, Chamorro music is continued through the radio waves and through dance clubs, parties, and tourist attractions. There are 2 radio stations solely dedicated to Chamorro music on Guam and 1 in the CNMI. There is also an active community of musicians on the island that perpetuate the genre with new albums and live performances. You can catch these live performances at hotels, commercial venues, and local restaurants. Although modern Chamorro music is heavily influenced by other cultures, the perpetuation of the language is an important tradition that is being carried on by our local artists. Not only is the language aspect of the Chamorro culture being preserved through music today, but local productions seeking to revive traditional Chamorro dance and song through a neo-traditional brand of music have also emerged in recent decades. Guahu Tautau was the first of these productions beginning in the 80s, where they would visit other Pacific islands to display their musical talents and broadcast the Chamorro culture through their performances. Today, there are several of these traditional dance productions on Guam that perform at events or compete in inter-island competitions. Seeing how much the times have changed Chamorro music throughout the years, we can also see how the culture as a whole changed as well. Starting with the Spanish and continuing till this day with the US, foreign imperial powers have definitely had a detrimental effect on the prevalence of the Chamorro culture on Guam. Nowadays, the island is heavily Americanized and extremely English-speaking dominated. However, whether it's singing Fanmato during a novena or Fanogi Chamorro at a basketball game, we can remind ourselves that despite a tragic history with colonization, we can still cherish some aspects of the Chamorro culture, such as the language. Despite previous efforts to destroy the language, these songs allow for younger generations of Chamorro English speakers to speak their native tongue and hold on to that part of their identity. Because not only can music break barriers of language, but it can also break barriers of time by allowing people in the present to hold on to and reinforce a weakened tradition.